Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Okay, everybody, welcome to episode number 51, I think, of Baskets of Knowledge. Thank you for joining us today. As you can tell, Tane is not joining us today because, he's having a bit of a nap, which is all good. Before we start our podcast today, as always, we start with the learning. My learning from this week is that we all have big goals in our lives, but we've got to start with those small steps there, and we keep getting caught up with trying to get those goals, and then we get lost because we forget about those small steps. And it's happened to me a few times this week with some things that I'm working on. So just remember, small steps equals big goals. As always, our podcast is out there to reach some amazing young people, and amazing people actually from around the country and around the world. And it is my privilege and my honor to welcome our guest this week. Welcome to our podcast, Maya.
Thank you, Rajesh. It's really lovely to be on here. I've been keen to come on for a while. It's awesome what you guys do here.
Awesome, thank you. And here's a crazy fact for our listeners out there. Maya, where are you actually tuning in from today? Which part of the world are you in?
Tuning in from Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the US at the moment. It's 2:30 p.m. over here, so
yeah, awesome. So 2:30 p.m. over there, and it is 9:30 a.m. in New Zealand. So yeah, we love time travel. It's fantastic. Maya, for our listeners, do you want to tell us what you're doing in Portland at the moment? How did you end up there? We'll talk about that in a bit, but what are you doing at the moment in Portland?
Yep, so at the moment I'm running for Portland State University. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to, be on scholarship here. They, provide me with a fantastic education, and all I have to do is race for them, like a handful of times per year with this wonderful team that I train year round with. We're in cross-country season at the moment, which is why I'm back here in September. And our first race is actually in a week. So we're in the full thick of training right now, just before university classes starts.
Yeah, that's such an awesome thing. But let me ask you a question. Let's go back to Maya in New Plymouth. Maya New Plymouth in year 13. If I said to Maya New Plymouth in year 13 when I met you, I was like, hey Maya, you'll be racing for a university in the United States. What would you say to me at that point in time?
I would just laugh. I'd just be hysterical. I'd just crack up. I'd tell you to leave. So.
and yes, you would. Yes, you would.
Yeah.
And tell someone running. So has running been a big part of your life for a very long time, or is something you picked up later on in life?
I've always had an interesting little touch and go with it. Since I was, Taranaki, we're a big farming, and we're a gritty area of New Zealand. A lot of good cross country runners who have gone to the States from New Plymouth and Taranaki. And I'd started in primary school, just winning cross country here and there, knowing that I had a natural ability for it, but I don't think it comes very naturally to people understanding that it is a sport in its own right. So it never occurred to me that I could train for this as my sport until later on in high school. Yeah.
What was that moment when you were like, actually, this is actually a sport? When you're in primary school, and this is the same. You just do stuff because you have to do stuff, and everyone go for a run. Everybody do this here, and then in high school, you then have high school. It's interesting because you then have the I guess the place where things start changing for you. In New Zealand, rugby and netball and basketball are the big sports. If you're male or female, you choose one of those. They're all both of those. And here you are going to go, running. What is that moment when you decide this is your jam?
I mean, probably my last year of high school, I dabbled a bit in soccer, a little bit in hockey, and I knew that I had this unbridled kind of passion for something. There was something kind of simmering below the surface. I've always been a real enthusiastic. I try and be as authentic and as present as possible, and I was just needing something to channel that through.
Yeah.
And I remember just deciding I'm going to go for a training run because I just like to run anyways. And I just went on this run that went for ages in my last year of high school, my second to last year of high school. And I just, when you get into a flow state, I think I've discovered the flow state that running can bring you. And I just decided to not stop. Like it was real gradual, but yeah, wasn't really a decision, more an inevitable thing that just ended up happening naturally.
I love the way you put it because it was a flow state. It was just something you tried and then it just happened. And sometimes
Yeah.
that's the best time when things happen, right? When you least expect it.
Yeah.
And then boom. So now you've discovered this passion here. You're finishing high school. And I guess in high school, we've got the sport on the side here, but what is your academic vision at that point in time? Because, a lot of us growing up, we go, cool, sports is a cool thing, but we don't think it's going to be our big thing.
Mm.
And education is the way we go forward. So what was your thinking at that point in time?
Well, I mean, same as most people in New Zealand,
Yeah,
like no organized sports system and the New Zealand university system. And that was fine. Like, I was very grateful to receive financial support from Facility Sandy's Winch, like, who
yeah,
do a great job in Taranaki of getting students down to Otago. So, I had my academic stuff sussed because of that. And it was just going to be all about academics at uni. I didn't go down with the intention to really race or train. Again, it just became a thing that happened when I was studying at uni just because I loved it so much. Like,
yeah. Brilliant. And let's talk about your upbringing in Taranaki. So, living in Taranaki, it's for those of you that don't understand New Zealand geography well. Taranaki is on the west coast, west
yeah.
coast of New Zealand, and it's a bit isolated in terms of people have to go off on the side. And I'm podcasting from Gisborne today, which is on the other side. So these two are the probably remote regions on the North Island where people have got to try and go veer off to try and get to. So growing up in Taranaki, it's a very tight-knit community. And what is that like for you as you're growing up, and then as you start realizing that you have to actually leave if you want to pursue academic pursuits because there's no university in the region?
Yeah, no, it definitely occurred to me real early on. I remember 9 or 10 thinking, like, how do you leave? Because it is so tight knit and
Yeah,
everyone knows each other. It's the quintessential small town. Um, and thank goodness for like people like you, Prajesh, who come into high schools and like say, here's this university that's one of the best in the Southern Hemisphere. Um, it's easy for you to get down. Like, come see it, come enroll. I remember you coming and speaking to us was a big thing in high school. Like, because I was torn between a few different things. I was the first in my family's, like, I think they call it first generation
yeah,
in America. It's a big thing here, but
yeah.
that was just norm. Like I was figuring out, as I went along.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So, and that's pretty interesting for you because now you have the juxtaposition of the sport which is happening, but also the first in family to go to university or first in family to think about actually leaving. What is that like for you in terms of your family? Because I'm guessing also finances were not the strongest thing in your family as well.
No, yeah. I mean, my family was stoked for me when they knew I wanted to go, but there was that, before securing those scholarships or even knowing they were available, I didn't know if I was going to
Yeah,
be able to go because how do you afford that
yeah,
without financial base? Like you need to pay to be in a hall or just even flatting is expensive. Um, yeah, there was definitely a lot of confusion and just figuring it out day by day. But mentors like careers advisors, like yourself, like just people that you call up at Ask Otago, for example, were great in helping me kind of navigate that for the first time myself.
yeah. And that's really awesome. And I guess, like you said before, you had a couple of choices. And for those of you that heard this podcast before, there's 8 universities in New Zealand and plus an amazing polytech. What made you choose where you wanted to go, without any biases? You have choice because you could do whatever you want to do wherever you want to go.
Do you mean when I first decided to go to the University
When
of
you
Otago?
first, that's right, yeah. When you had that, when you were thinking about where you want to go.
Yeah, so Otago was always something kind of special to me. I knew that they had that juxtaposition of the outdoorsy culture and that real there's just something special about Dunedin, eh? It's difficult to describe. I'd been to Dunedin a couple of times for track meets in high school, and it just felt really homely, like real special, like the fact that students are just looking out for each other on the streets, like there's no
Yeah.
second thought about it. You just feel quite at ease. So I liked that immediately.
Oh, brilliant. And what about your study area? What were you hoping to study? What did you
So
start
I'm
studying? Because I'm sure it's
studying,
changed.
yeah, I'm still studying psychology. I've switched
Awesome.
from a Bachelor of Arts to a Bachelor of Science here. But
Fantastic.
yeah, you can do that at any university, but the Dunedin psychology program I really liked because it's quite rigorous and you get quite a scientific background when you're studying there. Lots of lab work, that nice stuff that you might not get in a regular BA program at Vic or Auckland. Yeah, quite liked the curriculum.
Oh, brilliant. And you apply to Otago, you get all these awesome scholarships, then your whole offers come out. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that roller coaster, because that's a roller coaster in itself, isn't it?
Yeah. I struggle to remember what happened there, but just a lot of admin that didn't work out in terms of, I think there was some stuff that didn't get sorted out with the careers department, and my offer came in too late after the normal selections. And what did we do? We had to apply one by one, seeing what hall would take me. I ended up at Salmond. Luckily, they said they'd take me because it was an unconventional.
It was quite crazy, because I remember that time I was so surprised you didn't get a spot, given everything you got, and the two of us were like,
so weird.
What's happening? Yeah. But anyway, so you get offered Salmond, and for those of you that are not in New Zealand, basically, Otago has this amazing reputation with the colleges, and people want to try to go to different places, and some people have incorrect perceptions of some places, but that's not their fault. It's just the way the world is at the moment, and the way the world is actually. And you get Salmond College, and I called you and I said to you, hey, it's gonna be okay. I don't know if you believe me at that point in time.
I know. Yeah, I was stressing out because, like you said, these preconceived notions of, the colleges. It's great that the Dunedin university culture is so strong, but it also lends itself into this, this is like this is like this, a lot of stereotyping. And Salmond just got caught up in that it's a massive party hall, academics are not the thing to do there. And I did stress out. Yeah.
And then you arrive there. You arrive there. So now you've got a place to stay. Obviously, you still have this straight here. But before you actually do that, let's talk about your summer at home. So you have your last summer as a high schooler, and now you have this adventure coming up with you. And like you said before, it's first in family for you to head away. What is going through your family's mind as this was happening?
I think my family always, because I was a pretty academically involved kid, and I was I don't know, my mum did say to me, we always knew you'd go off and do your own thing. And that's got some mixed emotions chucked in there. You can kind of hear like, I'd like to think there's some pride combined with, that I had this loss as well. Like I am very close with my family, and I really did benefit from their great support growing up. So it's been tough sometimes to like step away from that. They are still just a 12-hour flight home.
It's just right.
But that summer was mainly focused on my beginning to consistently train. Actually, that was when I really started training quite seriously about running and got my first New Zealand medal. That was when offers to unis in the States started coming through, just before I attended Otago.
And how did that happen? Were you actively seeking that, or did they come to you? Which way did it work out?
They came to me. I knew about the NCAA, but I thought it was only for the very best athletes in the world to go and compete internationally. And I just saw a request on my Facebook one day from a coach, and he said, "Hey, we'll pay for you to come to Southern Mississippi." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure about that," but still, the notion of a full ride to university was so, novel to me that I did consider.
Totally. I mean, imagine you're 17 or 18 years old, and someone says to you, "Hey, we're going to offer you a full scholarship to go to the States," and you're like, "Whoa, that would have been I guess you first would have gone, is this a joke? Is this someone just trying to?"
My whole family was like, "This is a joke. Like this is a scam artist." I was trying to convince them, like, "No, this is a thing. This is the NCAA." But, it is very funny. Of course, small town Taranaki as well. It is a joke almost.
Totally. And then you head away. You go over to Dunedin. And did your offers start coming up? Were there more offers coming up, or was it one and then nothing and then?
Yeah, there were a few offers that kept coming through that year, especially as I competed as well throughout my first university. I ended up, running well at cross country nationals, came second, won my first national title at road race that year. And by then there were quite a few schools who were messaging me or emailing me, and I was starting to kind of get in touch with a few of them. and suss it out a
Awesome.
bit more.
So I don't know how this works yet, so maybe you could help us clear this out here. Were there scouts at the different events, or did they just see you in the media coming through? How did they actually find you, Maya?
So every school has a different recruitment kind of angle or strategy that they go for. Um, I know that my coach here at Portland State, would look through the Athletics New Zealand ranking lists where they have, this person was first in the 5K or second in the 5K. And they kind of go through and see if any students are, 20, 19, 18, just message them and say, hey, you're of university age. But yeah, every coach does it differently. I know I don't think there's many people who would fly to New Zealand to scout
Yeah,
out in-person races, but for sure,
yeah.
like I know they watch live streams, they watch the events online, and they keep an eye out for people who race well.
That's a whole different world, right? You probably wouldn't think
Insane.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You wouldn't ever think about it. No.
Yeah. Wow. Before we come back to your racing, let's talk about your time in Dunedin. So you've arrived in Dunedin. It's a whole new place. You have this preconceived idea of the hall that you're going to. You arrived. What was that like for you in the first few weeks, I guess?
First few weeks, I tried to, and I guess there's like a big teaching in this as well. I kind of was inauthentic. I gave up who I kind of thought I was and what I knew I liked, which was, not really drinking, not really partying,
Yeah.
not really socializing for hours and hours on end. But I kind of pushed that to the side in the hopes of making these tight-knit connections with people that you're supposed to make in your hall, right?
Yeah.
So I engaged in a bit of that culture for the first few weeks, but then I found myself surrounded by people who didn't actually share the same values as me.
Yeah.
That was interesting, and I had to really take a look at the time I was spending and like asking myself, like, is this time productive? Is this time worthwhile? Am I doing this for the sake of doing it rather than pursuing what I actually want to pursue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really love you say that because there's this preconception against all preconceptions that when you go to university, whichever university you go to. When I went to a university in South Africa, it was the same thing. When you go to university, you're meant to drink, you're meant to go out, you're meant to do all these things here, which is quite crazy because let's just say a week before that you don't do any of that kind of stuff there. A week before you're living your well, being your authentic self, not doing that there, and then in 1 week you have to change your whole persona to match this thing that you're meant to do. And I struggled as well. I went to university and I didn't drink when I was at school.
Yeah.
And then when I went to university, it was really quite odd because I made a pact that I wasn't going to drink. So I was like, I'm not going to drink, and
Oh, wow.
it was really quite crazy that I felt like I was in the outer until I found the people that respected the fact that I didn't want to drink. And it's really quite hard, like you said, because everyone's in this thing, oh, you have to drink, you have to go out. And I was like, I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
Oh, what a crazy person. Why are you? And it's so strange, especially navigating when you're an 18 or 19-year-old in this world where you're trying to make those social connections. And I guess
Mhm.
you've gone through that and you went, all right, cool, let me give it a crack. And then the awesome thing for you though is you decided to find yourself pretty quickly. Whereas
Yeah.
lots of young people don't do that. They live out a whole semester, a whole year, then they go, oh,
What am
yeah,
I doing?
what am I
I
doing
mean,
exactly?
I think there's a type of exhaustion that comes with that as well. Like
Yeah,
I became really tired. I was pretty negative. I was not super fun to be around because I was constantly, when you're out of touch with yourself, everyone else around you can kind of tell, like,
totally.
really you're kind of
Yeah,
just an actor. That's what I felt like. And
yeah,
like I wouldn't have wanted to do that for any more than a few weeks. Ideally,
yeah,
I wouldn't want to do it at all. But even the
yeah,
people that I did end up becoming friends with, it's hard to have the courage when you're 18 years old to
yes,
authentically show up and say, I'm not drinking.
yeah,
I'm involved in this outdoor pursuit or, this
yeah.
artistic pursuit.
Yeah, and so which is, I mean, I have to applaud you for first of all going through that, but applaud you for actually going to the other side. Go, actually, wait a minute, let me find my true self. And once you transgress that to find your true self, what is that like for you then? Did things change for you in terms of yourself, or is it still a bit of a journey?
I think that, there was still a massive way to go because in all reality, I did thrive in Dunedin. I did learn to thrive, but I knew that something wasn't quite right. And that was the fact that I probably should have been in the States running on scholarship, but I was still in Dunedin. It was
Yeah,
like a little launching pad, and I'd gotten safe there and I had my support base. Like I've got a few fantastic friends that I spent this last winter with. my partner is down there still completing his degree in physics. And you can't stay in that safe nest forever though, if
Yeah.
you know there's something else. So yeah.
And like I said before, that unbridled passion was there, and probably
Hmm.
Dunedin, as you said before, New Zealand is good, but it doesn't have all opportunities, especially in your chosen sport. You know,
No.
if you're
No.
playing rugby or netball, whole different story altogether. But this is a very different story. So I'm going to ask you a question. Tell me about how your relationship with the warden was at that time. So Nick Bates, what's
Oh,
that like?
Nick, our brother Nick. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love Nick. Like he's fantastic. Is he still the warden at Salmon? Do you mind me asking?
he sure is. Yeah, he sure is.
Yeah. He actually himself has quite the passion for running, so we got on really well. He he and I had some really encouraging conversations about competition in Dunedin and even starting to talk about the States things coming up with him. He was like a really supportive pastoral figure. He's fantastic. He really helped with that transition.
Yeah, I asked about that because there were at times he was a bit worried about you, and he would voice that with me, and
Mm.
especially at the start, and then at the end he was like, what a legend, which is
Oh wow.
really awesome.
Um,
So I just asked about that because one thing that I think I'm very privileged, and I guess a lot of my colleagues as well, is we get to know yes people, and so yeah, so it's pretty awesome that they say, hey, I'm worried about Maya. What do you think? What things are
yeah.
going on? Yeah, it's like, okay, cool. Let's have a chat. Um, so that happens there. And now, when at this point in time you're studying, you're doing academically well, you have a partner now, and Dunedin doing physics. This desire, this desire, I guess, this yearning to do more. When does that now become a reality where I'm actually now going to do something about it?
Um, well, I mean, I started the process of really seriously looking at colleges and beefing up my application. Like, you can make these little resumes online where you tell people your achievements and talk to coaches via third-party platforms. I was engaging in a bit of that. Um, and after speaking to 10 universities or so, I'd had a little look around. I actually made the decision not to go to the States at first.
Okay.
Because I was so happy in Dunedin, like
Yeah.
really special there. And the recipe that had made me into the runner that I was, which was, I was very successful down there for my age. I didn't know if I wanted to leave that because
Yeah.
obviously working. And then skip forward to the beginning of the first year, of second year of university, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
February, January. The school that I had followed for a long time and kind of thought, they're a bit too out of my reach, hits me up, Portland State, and, asked me if I'd like to hop on a Zoom call with the coach. And, I started that recruitment process with them. And it was just, I remember telling myself, because you kind of go through the motions, but you don't know what the offer will be while you're getting
Yeah.
recruited. And I said to myself, like the night before the offer came out, like if it's full ride, I've got to go.
Yeah.
Like, and there it was. I was like, yeah.
And tell me about the emotions. Tell me about the emotion when you go, right, cool. This is because you just said before, this was the place that you were like, oh, they're over here, I'm over here. Not going to happen. You get the phone call, you have the Zoom conversation. Did you think, did you doubt that you'd get the offer? What did you think just before the offer? Were you like, did you have doubts about it? Or were you like, this is it, this is coming?
I I honestly think I knew deep down that it was going to be that offer that I needed because it was just in line with everything that had happened. And
Yeah,
when you can see the life path, you can see it. Like
yeah,
I think it was inevitable, but I definitely was struggling with those thoughts of, because I'd grown up in the small town and I definitely still have some issues with self-esteem. I was like, I still think it's uncanny that I'm here. I don't think I deserve to be here a lot of the time. So it was weird hearing like, we value you and we really want you to come. Like, yeah.
that's amazing. That's really, and when you told me, I was like, wow, this is so amazing. This is really, well, when I saw your post, I was like, oh, boom, here we go. This is so cool for you. So cool for
Yeah.
you. But tell me about the now you've this is quite crazy because you have this amazing opportunity, but you have this comfort level right here, and now things have got to start. You've got to start wrapping up this life here. What is that like for you, and also for those around you, I guess? And I guess
Yeah,
was this COVID year? Was this during COVID or was it post COVID? I can't remember
this
when
was
it.
during COVID. This was
Yeah,
during COVID as well. So
yeah,
we all went home for the end of semester one,
yeah,
and I knew I wasn't going to go back for semester two because that's
yeah,
when American semester starts. And it was honestly it was a massive grieving period for me because like these close mates that I'd made, and of course my boyfriend and just the town that I'd like grown to love so much, you
yeah,
know, that was my new safe space. New Plymouth was great and I'd done my time there. So I was
yeah,
kind of in waiting. I was in purgatory,
totally.
waiting for life to start. So there was a lot of emotional turmoil then, but yeah, I'm very glad I was able to get through.
Brilliant. And jump on a plane, you land in Portland. What is that like for you? Well, wherever you land first.
I remember just being in the airport and being surrounded by these American accents and, thinking, oh my God, I'm in a dream. I haven't done this. And I like
Yeah,
land in Portland, I go to the hotel, I see the way the toilet water flushes. That's I was like, oh my gosh.
it's real, like boom. Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm just laughing. Like I remember just this feeling of euphoria and it was just incredulous that I'd actually done it at
yeah.
that point. Biting the bullet is a weird feeling, yeah.
And it becomes real, right? Until you actually enter the plane, actually land, nothing is real until you
Yeah,
step there.
nothing's real until
Yeah,
then.
yeah. And what is that? So you see the toilet water flushing, and then now you and I'm guessing this is the first time this was your first physical visit to Portland.
Yeah, I hadn't been. I know we talked about my family and stuff. Also, pardon the sirens outside. We are in
It's
downtown Portland. But yeah, my financial situation wasn't great. I hadn't really been overseas apart from the one Goldie trip,
yeah.
and I was really just thrown in head first. Like my first long haul overseas trip was a moving one-way ticket trip. Like, yeah.
How crazy is that, right? From the Gold Coast is New Zealand, really. To
Yeah.
let's be honest.
Yeah, no,
To
it's
this
pretty much
ticket here. Yeah, 100%. Let's be honest. It's a state, right? New Zealand. And what did your family think? So, I mean, let's go back to a little back here. So, you get this offer, and you take this to your family. Go, boom. You know that joke, that the scam thing. This has now become real. What do they think about it?
Um, to be honest, at that point, it was the end of my first year at university, and I think the fact that I was at Otago, that was already like a big step.
Yep.
So they knew I had the capacity to go on and do that, and I think there was less surprise now that I had finished that first year at Dunedin.
Yep.
So not a lot of surprise from my family at that point. They were just stoked for me to finally grab the opportunity rather than
Yeah.
thinking, oh, should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome. That's really fantastic that happened there. Because sometimes I've seen cases where families, young people have this opportunities and families like, nope, they're just way too afraid to lose their young person to whatever's out there.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
I see that a lot of times. So now you're in Portland. Let's talk about Portland. So this is the past con here. Now you land in Portland. You meet your coach for the very first time in real life. And what is that like for you? What is the transition from a university system in New Zealand and it's so different to the States?
Yeah, it's very weird going into a system where you are fully supported as a student athlete
Yeah,
rather than just at university, the university system in New Zealand, you're a student first and foremost. And
yeah,
if you're an athlete or an artist or whatever you are outside of your student life, that's up to you to coordinate and it's up to you to support yourself and make the time for that. Our classes and practice times are fully integrated. We have an athletic department that organizes our class schedule for us according to when we can, fit it in around practice. Our textbooks are paid for, supplied by the AD. Like, there's just so much support that I wasn't used to getting, but I was like, I remember like having meetings with coaches and them saying what they were organizing for me, and I'd say, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so thoughtful of you that you're organizing this." And they're like, "Yeah, we do this for everyone. What are you talking about? Fine." No,
You're not special. This is just you're part of our system.
no, you're not. Calm down. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's so crazy. And what about your teammates? Are they from all around the world as well? How was
Yeah.
that? What was that like for you?
So I currently live with my two best mates, Anya and Veronica, who are from Poland,
Oh wow.
parts Krakow and Gotzion. And our other roommate, Marina, is from Portugal, Spain.
Oh wow.
It's insane. There's so many different nationalities all in one place because of how the NCAA scholarship system works. Particularly for women, there are a lot of opportunities because of Title IX. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but just making sure the funding for sports is equal. So,
Tell us about
yeah.
Title IX. Tell us about Title IX. I know nothing about it. I assume I know nothing.
Title IX means that you redistribute that money that comes in from men's football, for example, men's basketball, the big money makers, and you spread
Yeah.
it evenly across sports, particularly women's sports, so that chicks like me from a tiny town in New Zealand can be supported and have that intervention come in, or people from Kenya who may not have had access to education now have this opportunity to run in the States and get their degree, probably first one in like however many generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. And then so you've got the athletic side going on here. What about the academic side? What are the classes like? When I speak to people, are you going to go into a classroom? There's going to be maybe 200 people. What is it like in the States? And how big is Portland State, I guess?
So Portland State is around 40,000 students.
Just casually, yep.
Casually, yeah. And that's
Yeah,
I love that that's just a medium-sized university in the States as
yeah,
well. Like you go to a lecture and yeah, you're just full to the brim. Like yeah, it's really awesome. You feel like you're in a movie because it is just how it looks like in the movies with the big halls and the little lecturer down at the bottom. Um, I'd say it was definitely an adjustment with the choices I got. At Otago, there's a lot of planning around what requirements you have to meet in your
yeah,
degree. Because you're generally paying for your education in the States, there's a lot of competition between universities, right? There's a lot of classes that you can choose
yeah,
because, you've paid that premium to attend most times. So that means you as the student are the customer
yeah.
and you get there's some very illustrious lecturers and professors here that I'm super grateful to have been taught by. Like, again, doesn't feel real. Like, yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Random ass question here. Let's talk about your the change from a metric system to the American system.
Yeah.
What has that been like? I mean, everyone else goes kilometers, and you're like, oh, I've got to go to miles. What is going on here?
My training log, we've got to put in what training we do every single day, whether it's,
Yeah,
I had to switch from riding in 10K, 9K, 11K, 7 miles, 8
yeah,
miles. I don't, yeah, or being 5'3", not
yeah,
160 centimeters or whatever. Yeah, it was weird, especially currency. I still
yeah.
calculate everything in New Zealand dollars when I buy something. I'll see
Okay.
something three USD, and I'm like, that's actually $5.
Exactly. It's so crazy, hey? I remember
Yeah,
that when
yeah.
I first moved to New Zealand from Zimbabwe, I did the same thing. I was converting everything to Zimbabwean dollars. Like,
Mhm.
I can't afford that. I can't afford that. That's so expensive. I can't afford that. It's
Yeah,
so, so
yeah.
crazy. It's so, until somebody said to me, "You can't do that, otherwise you'll never survive." And I'm like,
Really? I know. It's so bad.
it's so crazy. But it's so ingrained. It's so ingrained in our minds, right? This is the world we live in. We'll go
Mm.
convert it.
Yeah.
Talking about currency, what about the tipping culture? How's that been for you?
As a student who is trying to budget as much as I
Yeah.
can, um,
Yeah.
like I said, I am supported, very grateful for what the athletic department provides. Like I get my meal plan sorted so I can eat on campus at these dining halls, similar to the dining halls in New Zealand, except probably 3 times the size.
Yeah. I can
Three
imagine.
times.
Yeah.
It's I laugh every time I go in because it's like a marbles buffet. That kind of,
Oh
yeah.
wow. Oh wow.
But yeah, when I go out with my mates for a dinner or for a coffee, you just try and remember that the person serving you is, probably just like you,
Yeah.
student or someone just trying to get by. And sadly, the US system doesn't appear to be as supportive financially in the same way that New Zealand is with their wage system. So I do my
Yeah.
best here and there to.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's really hard to when I first went to the States for the first time, I had to navigate my head around that. And
Mm.
at first I was quite offended, like I've already paid until I realized that
Yeah.
actually, wait a minute, the people that are serving me are not getting paid. There's no minimum wage type stuff like what we have in New Zealand, or fair minimum wage. But that took a lot of adjusting. Yeah, so I had to go to the bank and get dollar bills and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. So now you've moved over to Portland, and you're living in Portland. When your first year, did you live in a hall of residence, or did you live in what happens when you went over there for the first time? Because you started as a first year, right? Or did they transfer your credits across?
So they transferred me across, but
Brilliant.
I did lose some credits of study. I'm currently an academic junior here,
Okay.
so that means I still have one more year. So the New Zealand university system is 3 years versus 4 years over here. So still got another, full year and a bit of study to do. I went into I would call it a hall of residence. I went into a dorm, so that's what the Americans call it. And I lived with another person for all of last year.
Yeah.
In the same room as me, which was a big
adjustment. What is that like? What is the room, the whole room sharing thing? Over here you had your own room. You come over there and you've got a room share. What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, you've met me for Jesh, and a lot of people who know me know that, I struggle with being quite anxious sometimes, and I do need my time to recharge. So it was, attacking this new situation with how can I make it work best for me? The cards I've been dealt in the situation. And again, I really wanted to give the whole American living like an authentic try like that. Don't just get your own room if you're a fresh student, like you go in with someone else. And it was a fantastic girl on the team. We got along great. She ended up leaving the team, but a new tick who's actually from Wanaka as well came into. So I know, fantastic. Yeah. So we had I had a great dorming experience. Yeah, just got to make it work for you.
Yeah, totally. And it's really quite crazy because, I guess in an American system, it's the expectation is they know they're going to live with someone else, a roommate, Whereas here, the expectation is the other way around. If you get a roommate, it's like, what are you talking about? It doesn't happen. What are you talking about? So you've experienced both worlds, from a single room to shared experience. And I guess both have got their pros and cons in so many different ways. Yeah. And then you I guess so you do that first year of dorm life, and then you've got to go flatting. What is it like trying to find a place in the States, given that you don't really know much about the place? It's a whole new planet, I guess.
No, it really does feel like you're a little Martian on Earth. Like it's quite funny. Knowing people, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And in this case, in like a downtown, like urban environment, you can't find those cheap deals yourself, just kind of, digging on the internet looking for a cheap apartment to rent. It's best if you know someone who already lives in a complex or knows the landlord. So that was what I did, like spoke to some people on the team, sorted out a cheap living situation there where I've got my own room this year, which is fantastic. We all live in the same apartment, but we've all got a little unit each. We've got our own space, which is lovely. It's just about not being afraid to talk to people and ask questions. That's the biggest thing, getting over that fear of, I look like I've got no idea what I'm doing. Like, you know what? I do have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to be open about it and ask for help anyways.
I love you for that, because this morning I was on LinkedIn, and somebody had put all these things about things you should tell a young person before they go to university, and they forgot one thing which I added. I was like, hey, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody seems like they know what they're doing, but actually nobody knows, and everyone pretends, right? But if you just upfront and go, I don't know anything, people are more likely to help you. Well, most people are more likely to help you out or scam you, but hopefully you don't get those there. Fingers crossed. So it's awesome that you did that, and such a great learning for you, and such great growth for you as a human, as a human. Taranaki, New Plymouth, small town. Dunedin, bigger town, but still small. Portland, you're right. Portland's, what is that like for you? I mean, this is a whole different, like you said, planet.
Portland is, another big reason I came here is it's just this massive outdoor sports epicenter. It's like Nike World Headquarters. We work out at every week.
Wow.
We go there and we run around campus and see professional athletes like Galen Rupp. Our coach's wife is Courtney Frericks, who's a Tokyo silver medalist. Like, they're just around you all the time. These people who are making the shoes that I used to sell in my little shoe shop in New Plymouth, like, I'm there next to the designers and the people who test out the prototypes. We were testing prototypes for Nike, our team. It's surreal. I love the tech development in Portland. It's a massive, just like, there's always something happening. There's always something like under the surface that it's going to be special. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's awesome that you get involved in that. Are you able to integrate with that there? Which
Yeah,
is
so we tested out some shoes last year, and those got released to the public. But we were giving feedback as a team that's very tightly knit with Nike. So it was a privilege to be a part of.
so if everyone doesn't like the shoes, you can blame Maya.
Blame
Maya,
me. Yeah.
blame Maya. There we go, Jan. Don't like it. All good.
I proved it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maya said yes. Oh, funny, crazy. Um, and I guess so. What about your running? How's that going? You said before that you had your recipe which was working in New Zealand. When you came over, did that recipe get leveled up, or was it just torn to pieces and started again? What is that like for you?
There was definitely a period where it was pretty much, I had my whole training philosophy, which was low mileage, less running, more intensity, transformed into less intensity and more mileage. So I was doing the opposite of what I had done. And I was quite scared. I remember saying to the coach before my first race, like, hey, I don't know if I'm adapting very well to this training. I was pretty nervous. I was getting dropped in a lot of workouts, which is, when the girls go in front of you and you're getting left behind, which is always, it's hard when you're used to achieving highly as well at a national level. You're just like this little fish in a massive pond. But of course, then once cross-country season started, I think coming into my own is I'm quite a competitor, or at least my coaches have told me that, and I really enjoy the process of being present and gritty in a race. It's really special to me. So I was able to put some pretty good performances out and respond well to that training. So yeah, it's gone pretty well.
Brilliant. And I guess, like you said before, it's a bit of a challenge to your ego when you are basically the best in New Zealand in your age group, and then you come and you go, actually, wait a minute, I was amazing, and now I'm here. What is going on here?
Because you're surrounded by people who are the best from their hometown or their home state, and the states in America are the same size as the country like that we're from. So, or bigger. Yeah.
Crazy. And what has it been like for you living over there and through COVID and all the lockdowns and your family and New Zealand? Because you're tied with your family, and you mentioned before just 12 hours away, but you've spoken about how amazing it is, but life is not always amazing. There's also ups and downs, and when you have those times when you're on a downer, because that's life. What is that like for you, being so far away from whānau and family?
It's required a lot of I'm glad I've taken psychology, so I'm in touch with a few things that I know I need to do as someone who does get anxious, and I do tend to overthink or overanalyze. If I'm having a downer period, sometimes I'll panic because I know I'm supposed to be grateful and really enjoying this. I don't want to waste it with emotion. And I used to really repress that and try and just go to training, not think about it, just push it down and down. But then there came a point, I remember last year, I was like, this is being inauthentic again, like having that, again, similar to what we talked about in my first year at Otago, learning that negative emotion isn't something to hate, it's an indicating factor, it's something that needs to be acknowledged and worked through. And I did work through it, and, that meant maybe fewer calls with my family because I was a bit, dependent, and maybe I wasn't getting the response that I really was craving. Maybe that could come from friends instead, or my teammates. Just diversifying my support system was key. So yeah.
And I love that. I love so much from what you say to me, because a lot of it is things that it doesn't matter where young people are going, or actually adults are going. The stuff that you're saying is relatable to anybody. Being authentic, and also diversifying your social support, because a lot of us tend to put the social support on a family member or a friend, and And then when they don't give you what you're looking for, you feel like, oh no. And then both parties feel like they're failing. And you just go into a deeper cycle of So it's really awesome. But you have to go through it to learn from it. You can't just read a book and go, cool, this is it, I'm done. Happy days. You've got to go through it. But again, so back you've done that there. But what is it like again? The physical presence of your family around you. When you're in Dunedin, it's not that far. But it seems to be far when you're in Taranaki. Oh, Dunedin's so far away, but now you're actually really far away. Did you miss the physical presence of those people that are special in your life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've spoken to you about it before, but I'm really close with my sister, especially, who has my twin sibling who has cerebral palsy, and I've definitely been like a half sister, half parent figure in that sense for pretty much my whole life. And that was really tough, not just physically being there to look after or support her or, just hang out with her, have her around. I knew that I was going to leave my parents like most kids do, but the sibling, I definitely found it difficult with leaving Xanthi.
Yeah. But I guess, she's seeing you living your dream, and she is proud of you. I mean, we're all proud of you, which is really, really quite cool. Really quite cool. And you came back home. What is that like, coming back home after such a long time being away from New Zealand?
It was the nicest feeling. It's definitely it was funny being looked at as this person. I still don't think about it like this, when I come home and people are saying, hey, let's catch up for coffee, when I haven't talked to them, in ages, or I don't know them that well, and people are messaging me and saying that they're proud of me or whatever. I found that really difficult to manage because I hadn't changed,
Totally. Yeah.
just my external achievements looked to be more impressive, and that's why people were reaching out to me and wanting to catch up. So I definitely had to think about that when I got home, like, oh, I'm someone new to these people, even though I am the same.
Yeah.
So
and I think it goes back to what you at the start, is your authentic self. Despite all these amazing achievements, you still Maya.
Yeah, no, nothing has changed.
Exactly,
Literally
nothing has changed. Exactly.
I wish that I could have embraced the kind of role that I've been thrust into. Like I still tear up when these people who are in high school, I've had a couple girls message me and say like, hey, I'm thinking of going over to the States on scholarship. I look up to you. I've seen your content on the Portland State Vikings Instagram page, which showcases races and stuff. And I just can't fathom that people are like, looking up to me and wanting me to give them advice. Like, it's the greatest privilege. It's so awesome.
Yeah, it's really quite cool. And I speak about you when I'm in schools, especially when I go to small schools, and not just you, but people that I know have come from places that heading away is not a reality. When you speak to young people and go, oh, this is never going to happen because I play tiddlywinks or whatever. But then I speak about there's a couple of people that I speak about. Hey, wait a minute, it's not about what you do. It's about trying this experience. And it's awesome that you are inspirational for these young people. But at the end of the day, you're still Maya. But for other people who don't know you, you're actually this person that has managed to leave Taranaki, leave New Zealand, and achieving something which is pretty special, which is pretty cool. If they don't know you as a person, even if you do know you as a person, they go, oh, she still misbehaves, she still has a good time, she's still a human being who does what human beings do, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So coming home was good. And what is like going back now? So you come home for a little bit, it's pretty special, and you're back again now, getting ready to embrace another year, I guess.
Yeah, another year of doing just what I really have this like we keep saying, unbridled passion. It's joy, it's freedom, it's we've got a group of 10 girls or so that we're training with, that I'm physically running with every single day, and there's a wider group of 30 girls and another 30 guys on the team who are like family to me. And you can't say that at every university with a track team. Like, we are really something special, and it's why I came here, and it's so cool to now come back as a returner and be that's my goal this year as well, to be a part of that culture and just be a positive force for people coming in, whether they're new or they're returning, like, yeah, just express my gratitude in the best way I know how, which is just loving it to the max. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Like you said, the best way to show appreciation is to actually help others to come through, and which is probably the hardest thing to do for a lot of people, because we're humans and we have ego, and our ego makes us go, hey, this is my, I mean, I guess it's everybody, as you go to second year students, oh, I'm a second year, you're a first year, blah, 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 first year. But you can't just 2 weeks ago, you were in the same boat as them. Nothing changes.
Exactly,
Nothing just changes.
No.
It's so crazy how that happens. And I find it really interesting when I at universities, when second years start belittling first years. Like, wait a minute, when you're a first year, you didn't like that, and now you're doing the exact same thing. So
yeah, I know.
Don't do this.
Cognitive dissonance hits hard, eh?
So crazy, so crazy. Maya, we've been talking for almost an hour now, which is, like I said to you before, this is going to be we could talk forever.
Yeah.
But we're going to start wrapping up, and the way we like to wrap up is our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge. And the hardest question we like to ask, which I think is the hardest question, is we'd love you to share one piece of knowledge that our listeners could put into their basket from your learnings, or things that you think are important for anyone, irrespective of who they are. I mean, let's put it like this. Your podcast has had so many learnings in here, but which is one thing that just stands out for you that you would like to take out?
I think the biggest thing that I've tried to express to people, no matter who I'm speaking to, is that you have a place as you in the world, and you can try and hide from it and run from it and do whatever. You can spend some time like mucking around, but at the end of it all, it's you that you come home to at the end of every day, and you'll feel it whether or not you're putting yourself on a path that's in line with who you are. But the biggest teaching for me is been knowing truly deeply that like there is a place in this world where you belong, and as long as you're checking in with yourself and asking, am I doing right by me? And the answer is yes. Doesn't matter where you end up going, you'll be in the right spot.
What an awesome question. Am I doing right by me? And only you know the answer to that, right?
Yeah.
You can't lie to yourself. Oh, you can, but it's never gonna work out. That is a fantastic learning. Before we wrap up, what's next for you? You've got a race meet coming up. What are you feeling about that?
Yeah, so it's so cool going to these races that I've watched since I was, I've always been a fan of cross country running in the States. Like I was watching the Roy Griak Invitational and the Bill Dellinger Invitational, which these big schools like Oregon, Washington, Stanford compete at, and we're going to one of those, just like we did last year. We flew out to Minnesota, and now we're going down the road to University of Oregon to compete in one of these massive meets that are, one of the highlights of the year. So Bill Dellinger's next week. It'll be a good little kind of season opener for a lot of us. And yeah, the cross country season ends on November 12th when we go down to regionals. So it'll just be competitions every few weeks up until then.
Oh, awesome. Well, from myself and Tana, I guess we wish you all the best over the next few weeks, and we look forward to seeing what happens as you go through this. Thank you so much for jumping on today, Maya. It's been my privilege talking to you. I'm very lucky to have known you since year 12, I think is when I first met you. So it's been a few years. So it's really awesome seeing how you are and where you're going at the moment. But thank you for sharing your story with us today. So listeners out there, hopefully you enjoyed this episode with Maya, and look up for her if you're not a runner. Well, hard luck. If you're a runner, jump onto those live streams and see how she's going over the next few weeks, next few months. But as always, thank you everybody for listening to our podcast. Thank you, Maya, for jumping on. And as always, don't forget to find some piece of knowledge to put into your baskets over the next few weeks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.